It's time for the 1430 Connection on 1430 WNAV and 99.9 FM, spotlighting news, newsmakers, and important community issues. Now, with this week's edition of the 1430 Connection, here is WNAV news anchor Donna Cole.
Welcome to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. In the studio with me today is Ann Brennan. May is Mental Health Month, and Ann is going to share a story about her navigation through mental health issues with her teenage daughter and her creation of an event that's being held soon, June 3rd. And we're going to tell you all about that. Ann, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start at the beginning. You have how many kids?
I have 3 kids.
3 kids, and you live up in the Severna Park area.
I do.
Tell me about, I guess it's your 15-year-old.
Yeah, so actually, the 15-year-old is now 22.
Okay.
Or about to be 22. But when she was 15, she had...
And let's talk about the pronouns for a second,
Yeah,
so
can we
people
do that?
understand why you're going back and forth. And we can use they as the preferred pronoun, probably.
Yeah, you'll probably catch me going back and forth
Okay.
anyway. I've tried. Megan, Ethan was Megan.
Okay.
I'm getting used to it. But when I go back and I start talking about Ethan in the past, Ethan was Megan, and he understands where we're coming from here. So when I go back and I say when he was 15, we had these problems, it was really Megan who was having these problems.
So
and,
Megan was born a girl who's decided that would rather be a boy.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So the pronoun is they.
Right. Yes,
Okay.
it should be, and I mess it up a lot.
All right.
So my oldest was at West Point. This is how we found it out, and it was such a weird way to find it out. We were at a ball at West Point in New York, and it was the plebe parent weekend, and Ethan had said to me, I want to go to the ball, and I said, you have to wear a dress, and he said yes, and I said, are you sure? And he says yes, and I said okay. But he wouldn't go shopping for one. So we're there, and she had borrowed one of my old dresses, and it was sleeveless. And we were standing in line for a portrait. They do family portraits while you're there. And I looked down and I saw scars, not cuts, scars on his arms. And I realized he'd been cutting, but not for a little while. He'd been doing it for a long time, and he had hidden it really, really well. So that was the beginning of everything for us. From there.
And where was she? They were in school. Where?
At Severna Park High School at the time.
All right.
And nobody had mentioned it. Nobody had seen it. But, he's home with me. I didn't notice it. So that I don't really blame anybody for not seeing.
Any bullying throughout the school?
No.
career? Okay.
No. And
a lot of times with with any kids, you see bullying or meanness start developing in middle school,
Right.
and continuing on through high school. But with the LGBTQ crowd, it's even more pronounced.
Exactly. But I think for Ethan, it was more a battle of what was inside. It was more because also just a background on us. My brother-in-law and my sister-in-law are both gay. So he knew we would love him. He knew there would be no judgment within our house. But I think you still, from what I can tell, when you're struggling with your sexuality, you're struggling with your sexuality. You're trying to figure it out, and it doesn't really matter what other people think. So I think that was a good portion of it. I think the other part was he was just going to have this no matter what. He was going to be dealing with depression no matter what. And I think anxiety was a part of it as well. He was suicidal. We knew it. I knew it. Ethan admitted it, and we went to the pediatrician. And this was the first real problem we had, because I went to the pediatrician, and I had gone before and said, I think something's up with Megan. I think there's a problem. I think either anxiety or depression or ADHD. Something's going on, and he's not happy. But he didn't realize the extent to which. And even before, they would just give me a sheet. Not even a sheet, 15 sheets of paper saying these are the people you can call to get in for a psychologist.
And what happened once you called all those people?
It was impossible to get in with it. It's really hard to find an adolescent psychologist.
And did you have insurance at the time?
We did have insurance.
And how many of them took insurance?
Not many. But the truth is, at that point, we would have paid anyway.
Right.
The ones who didn't take the insurance, we would have paid. We just couldn't get in. And that's probably the hardest thing.
Months to wait if you could get in.
Exactly. And the pediatricians aren't trained to help you. So our pediatrician...
This goes back to what year?
In 2012.
Okay.
So 2013, sorry. 2013. So we took her to the pediatrician, and this was one of those moments that I still look back on and I shake my head. I can't believe it happened. I said, please show her your scars. Show the pediatrician your scars. And the pediatrician said, don't shame him that way. And I said, I'm not shaming. I just want you to see the extent so you understand what we're dealing with. This is not one or two experimental cuts. This is.
And your child was suicidal at the time. Did they
Yes.
say go to the emergency room?
They did not say go to the emergency room. And what they said instead was, let us talk to him. Let us talk to her. And they took her back in a room, and they were in there for 45 minutes. I called my husband. I said, well, this is good, because I think, they've got him in there for 45 minutes. And so maybe they're going to get to the bottom of something. And they came out, and what she had said is, when you go back, when we bring her back, we're going to call you in second, and we'll talk to you. And we'll talk to you guys together. And I said, that's fine. But when they came out, I said, okay, are you ready to talk? And Ethan goes, oh, no. They said that everything's fine. We can go home. And I looked at him like he was crazy. No, let me go back. So I went back to see the doctor, and they says, Ethan will talk to you about it in the car.
How long after that was there a suicide attempt?
Well, here's the thing. I don't lay down very easily. So the truth is, I called the 1-800 suicide prevention hotline. And I said, what do I do? And they said, why don't we send the mobile crisis unit to you? And they did. And the mobile crisis unit, which Jen
Corbin, who's been a guest on my show.
She's
right.
amazing. They came out and they said, yes, take her to Shepherd Pratt right now. And we did. And they unfortunately didn't admit her right away. They kept us on a wait list. We got in about a week later. So for a week, I slept outside her room and worried every single night that she would end up like the other ones and dead in her room overnight. So that was, to me, that's the first wake-up call.
So went into Shepherd Pratt, but how long after going to the pediatrician, there was a suicide attempt? There was more than one?
There were 3 suicide attempts.
How long after the visit to the pediatrician was the first suicide attempt?
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I should know this. I don't know it.
It's all right.
I don't know it.
A year, months?
Months. And it was, so we spent 2.5 years in and out of Shepherd Pratt. Finally ended up in a residential treatment center in Chicago.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more about the frustrations with the mental health system and what you've been through with your child. No longer a child, but
right.
Back then. This is Donna Cole on the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm Donna Cole. I'm in the studio with Ann Brennan. This is because May is Mental Health Month. She's gone through a lot with her kid with the mental health system, several suicide attempts, hospitalizations, and she started a event in Severna Park called Burgers and Bands. It's being held Sunday, June 3rd. From 11 a.m. to 10 p.m., a day filled with bands, with the proceeds going to organizations, you said, such as the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Are there others?
Yes, the STAR program at the Severna Park High School. We're hoping to help Corcoran High School set up a mental health initiative within, Corcoran Middle School within their school, and also the Music for Warriors, the Warriors Music Program, which helps soldiers with PTSD.
Okay. There is something then you're aware, because I did a whole series and I've sent those links to you, on the higher than normal adolescent suicide rate in Severna Park. It is not unique. There are other communities that have a higher than normal suicide rate throughout the country, not just in Maryland, but Severna Park has a pronounced higher than normal suicide rate. Were you aware of that when?
I was, and it's probably what sent me over the edge, because I went right along with Ethan over the edge into depression. It was because I watched so many people lose their children, and people would say to me over and over, "You're doing everything right," and I would get very, very angry and say, "Yes, but so did they, and they lost their kids anyway." It's really terrifying because you don't know what to do, and at the time there weren't a lot of resources. I think people have gotten a lot more open about it. The schools have gotten a lot more helpful. The STAR program has definitely helped at Severna Park High School, but there are other schools in the area who I know are not admitting to the problems they have with mental health in their schools.
So back during the shows that I did, I'd never heard back from the schools, but through Jen Corbin and through others, I did learn that Severna Park High School has initiated training all of their staff members on what to look out for with mental health issues, how to deal with them. They know they have a problem.
Right.
And have you seen that?
I've seen it. The only exception is the coaches, and I've asked about that, and they've said coaches aren't part of the school, so they can't make them do some of the training. I really disagree with this. I think it was a huge element for us when Ethan would go into the hospital and come out, the way he was treated. If he had other players on the team who had broken bones or had other issues.
Which team?
Soccer team.
Okay.
And they would be sitting on the sideline, but because Megan had missed practice because she was in the hospital for a mental health issue, that particular coach would have her sitting in the stands. And when I approached the principal, I was told, well, we don't really have control over how he does this.
So ostracized because of a mental health issue by the soccer coach.
Exactly. I hope that's not happening anymore.
And some of these coaches are the first line of defense because the kids will go to them with things they won't go to a teacher about.
Exactly.
So we're in the midst of a mental health, it's a double whammy. We're in the midst of a mental health crisis in the country with adolescents.
Right.
We're in the midst of a mental health crisis in this country with the opioid epidemic, and many of the funding is going towards the opioid epidemic. And what we're seeing is time after time, unfortunately, these school shootings.
Right.
We're hearing these fights. Is it gun control or is it mental health? And it's both. But parents, first line, second line, schools. Do you think the schools are doing enough?
I think it's hard to get the schools to do enough. I think one of the things we want to do with Burgers and Bands is to get more information to the teachers' hands so that they really do understand what a child is going through when they're struggling. Because I think they often expect to see, with Ethan, they didn't understand it because she always looked so happy. Mm-hmm. She always looked happy. But there were so many signs that they were missing. Some of them being that she was suddenly angry at things that she had never been angry at before. She wasn't moping around, but she wasn't doing well in school where she had done well in school before. And I don't think they're looking for those signs. They're looking for the kid who, pulls their hood up and sits in the back of the class and is hiding. Whereas there's a lot of kids who are hiding it. And these are high-performing kids who are getting straight A's and are captain of their team, and they're really great, wonderful kids doing really well, but inside they're struggling and nobody's seeing that.
You were aware of the study that the two visiting sociologists, one from University of Chicago, one from University of Memphis, that came in, and were you asked to be part of that?
They asked me, because we didn't lose Ethan, they asked me for resources. So I gave them some people in the neighborhood to talk to, some people in our community to talk to.
So the study, again, this was studying this higher than normal adolescent suicide rate in Severna Park, found that there is no one person, no one group of people to blame. It's the entire community is at fault for pushing kids too hard, whether it's in athletics or it's in schools or the parents. And it is an affluent community. Do you agree with that assessment?
I do. I agree. I think, one thing that the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention teaches is that suicide is very seldom because of just one thing. It's not because of bullying. It's not because of high pressure. It's not because of parents getting divorced. But it's because of things coming together at the wrong time, and usually there's an underlying mental health issue.
And that's exactly it. That's what the study found. It was not one thing. It's not just pushing kids. Yes, it's sports, it's academics, it's parents, it's you name it, societal pressures. There's several things that I learned from it. Not publishing honor roll lists, for instance, not riding around with an honor roll sticker on the back of your car. Many people don't agree, but that's what the sociologist suggested.
Right, exactly. I think it's really hard. My personal view on it is that if we talk about it more, that we can solve this problem. If we talk about it more, as a matter of fact, we've had two different parents come up to us and say that because of Burgers and Bands last year, because their kids learned that you can talk about it, that they came to them before they attempted. And that's a huge thing. If we can get that message out to kids that you're not alone and we're here to help, I think we can help.
And even just the language we use. Do not use the word committed anymore. That sounds like a crime. This is a mental health issue.
Right. Exactly. All
right, we're going to take another short break. More about that stigma and the event Burgers and Bands. This is Donna Cole in the 1430 Connection. We will be right back. Welcome back to the 1430 Connection. I'm in the studio today with Ann Brennan. She shared the very personal story of her child's journey through mental health issues. And Ethan, now, how's Ethan doing?
Doing well. He's doing really well. I think I've never seen him happier. You know, people will talk about the transgender thing, and you can't judge it until you've almost lost a child and you realize, you know what? This is where he's happy, and finally I see him happy, so I'm okay with where he is.
That's great news.
Yeah.
All right, Burgers and Bands. Tell me about how that started and what it is.
So it's an all-day. Somebody called it a music festival. That's probably the best way to describe it. It's an all-day event on June 3rd from 11 a.m. until 10 p.m. We have great bands.
This is at the Tap House in Severna Park.
At the Severna Park Tap House. We have the Kelly Bell Band, and oh my gosh, so many I can't even name them all.
Well, we're gonna name them all because they've all donated their time, right?
Yes, they've all donated. Everybody's donated their time.
Starting off with ACDB, Rapid Fire, Unplugged, Downside Up, Dean Rosenthal, Jimmy Haha, The Pulse, Deal With It, Z-Band, Safety Third, Savage Cabbage, Mac and Blue, Starbelly. 8 to 8:40 time slot was going to be TBA, and then Dave Teef.
Dave Teef, yeah.
Yeah, burgers, music, drinks. Sounds like a winning day to help battle this issue that we have in our community.
And completely family friendly. And the best thing, I think, is that we have resources there all day long. The American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Mobile Crisis Unit, Timberline Knolls is a residential treatment center. They'll be there. The hospital's going to have a table, and we'll have a table full of resources for local counselors and psychologists.
That's great. Stigma, yeah.
The stigma, yeah. It's just it doesn't need to be there.
Do you see this generation changing things?
I do. Me too. I know it's hard when you see it in the schools with the shootings, but I do think that this is the generation that's going to change things. I think this is the generation that's talking about it. It's the generation that's so much more accepting of everybody.
This is a health problem. It's not, it's same as cancer, same as liver disease, same as whatever. A mental health problem is a health problem, and it affects the entire community.
I think that was the most helpful thing anybody said to me, is that suicide and depression is a life-threatening illness. And when they said that, suddenly as a mom, I went, oh, that's why this is so stressful to me. This is why this is so hard for me. It's a life-threatening illness. I could lose my child. And I knew it, but just hearing it was really, really helpful.
To find out more information on this?
burgersandbands.org.
Okay.
It's really easy. You can volunteer, you can get your tickets, you can donate.
Tickets are how much?
$30 per ticket, or a family group of $400.
And again, where's the money going to?
It's going to the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, or the STAR program, a couple of other programs within the school, and the Warriors Music Foundation.
What is the STAR program?
The STAR program is so wonderful. They do these in the mornings. I think once a month they have a subject. They pick a subject. So it could be depression, it could be anxiety, it could be drugs. And they talk in the classrooms. They open a conversation with the kids. But then also they have a STAR week where they bring in speakers.
Is this just at Severna Park High? Or?
Right now it's just at Severna Park High. I'd like to see Burgers and Bands and the STAR program go across the country. We're looking at doing this in Charlotte, and we're hoping to bring the STAR program with us down there.
Is the STAR program something that was created by
students at Severna Park, students and teachers and parents at Severna Park?
That's awesome. And do you know what Severna Park, the unfortunate moniker of Severna Park High School
Suicide
is?
High.
Yeah.
Donna, I'm not sure if I told you that, but it was one of the things. There's so many insensitive things, and I don't want to forget one thing, but there's so many insensitive things. When my daughter went to Shepherd Pratt for the first time, they said, where do you go to high school? She said Severna Park. They said, oh, you mean Suicide High.
But as insensitive as that is, I hope it wakes the community up. That is either in Severna Park and outside, both.
Exactly.
Because it shouldn't be no school should be called.
Right.
This should not be happening
to
our
youth.
Happening.
Can I say one more thing, though?
Yeah.
This is something that if I could go back and change any one thing for us when we were going through this, is I would love to see, when you'd have to take your child to the hospital for this, I would love to see somebody say to the parent, how are you? And are you doing something to take care of yourself? Because taking care of a mentally ill child is as bad as taking care of a child with cancer. It's very stressful. You need some support, and that's not there for these parents.
Ann, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you.
This is Donna Cole. This has been the 1430 Connection. We will see you next week.